Hey everyone, and welcome to the Nasty Pots podcast. Before we start, if you would like to find out more about how you can build and grow your business, head to the episode notes where you can find a direct link that connects you straight to my WhatsApp. Send me a message and ask me anything related to strategy, sales, mindset, and growing your business. I would love to hear from you. And if you know anyone who needs to hear this episode, be sure to pass it forward. Welcome, Sanae. Thank you for joining me today on the Nasty Pots podcast. It's a pleasure to have you on. Let's jump straight into it. Introduce yourself and what you do. And also, I know what we're going to come on to is what you're passionate about.
Yes. Well, hi, Natalie. Well, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. So as you know, my name is Sanae. I'm a business breakthrough coach and sales mentor. So I help coaches to align with their gifts, their passion, and from that alignment place to attract and close clients, so make more sales in their business. So I've been in my business for 9 years. Prior to that, I was a corporate sales manager. So sales is really my thing. So the kind of the passion project that you mentioned that I really, really wanted to share is around debt. Because in my experience, I know that debt is one of the most, if not sort of at the forefront of many entrepreneurs' experience, but it's certainly a diminishing aspect in many entrepreneurs' experience. So, you know what it's like. We'll invest in these 5-figure programs. We'll pour money into our business because we feel very passionate about growing the business. It's something we feel very purposeful about. It's like it's that thing, isn't it? That when you find it, it feels so fulfilling. So when you're struggling, it's very easy to get sucked into all kind of the marketing messages that are out there and start investing. And I was no different. I was doing that in the early days of my business because, I was flip-flopping about, not knowing what is my niche, who is my ideal client, and I was really struggling. And so I was putting a lot of money into these programs, and with the intention, yes, to grow my business, but also to clear my debt that had been kind of slowly accumulating over the years. And every time I made the investment, I had some wins. I did succeed in small incremental steps, but I never managed to clear my debt. So the debt burden was growing, and I just couldn't seem to clear it. So what eventually happened was I ended up hitting rock bottom in 2018. I maxed out on my biggest credit card, which the limit was at the time £18,000. I was just making a payment of about £100 and it got declined. And in that moment, I knew that that was my final line of credit. And I had all these other credit cards, and they were sort of smaller balance, well, smaller, 10,000 here, 5K there, 3K there. And I knew all of them had been maxed out. And I thought I had more on my final 18K limit. So when I maxed out on that for me was an absolute rock bottom. And the shame I felt, because nobody knew, this was my secret. It was like my dirty secret, all this debt I had. I didn't even know how much debt I was in. All I knew was that I was running an overdraft facility. I had all this personal credit card debt, plus I owed my mum a chunk of money too. So that was my secret. And it was.
Where you in?
Pardon?
What was the debt you were in?
So I thought at the time it was about 35,000,
Yeah.
but actually it was more like 50,000.
Yeah.
But I couldn't. I never knew the exact amount because I couldn't face it. I just thought it would be too much for me to cope with. So it was the shame I felt. And over the years, I tried everything: repayment strategies, budgeting apps, cutting back, selling on eBay. I tried everything and nothing worked. And I often talk about it. I was like this yo-yo dieter. You lose weight and then suddenly, you feel great, but then within a year or two, you are back, perhaps even bigger than you were to start with. And I felt like that, like I was doomed. I did not know what was wrong with me. And I also didn't realize at the time the impact that was having on my business. Like I thought I was showing up. I thought I was being authentic. But all the time I had this like secret and this shame in my system. So in early 2018, when I maxed out on that biggest credit card, hit rock bottom, it took me a few hours to kind of peel myself off the floor, literally. But in that moment, you know, these kind of turning points we have where we just like hit that point of struggle. In that moment, I had a turning point in that I made a decision, like enough was enough. And so I made the decision that I would clear this debt in 6 months. I didn't know how, because and actually, just to backtrack, I'd been in debt for 23 years. Ever since I was 18, I'd been in debt. So I didn't know any other way. But I made a decision that I was going to get out of debt within the next 6 months. And if I did, I would write about it and share my story. Because if I could do it 23 years of being stuck in debt, then I figured I'd have to share my story. So long story short, I did it in just over 6 months. I cleared the whole lot, £50,000, and wrote a book, went to #1 bestseller in Amazon in 3 different categories, including personal finance and psychology. And yeah, so I mean, that experience ended up it was just over 6 months, cleared the debt in full. And it was actually quite a spiritual experience. I never realized quite how much of a like life-changing experience that would be. And when I wrote the book, I started, obviously people were reading it and I was sharing it, and people were reaching out to me saying, you know, thank you. I feel like finally somebody is sharing the story that I'm connecting with. And what then happened next was people started to reach out saying, kind of a bit jokey, but somebody reached out and said, well, I'm waiting for the workbook and the course. So that was like, oh, okay. So I did then create a course, 8-week course, which I just ran, you know, just very no planning, just very ad hoc. I got 23 people, I think, just jumped in, and they started getting results. And it was incredible. So it kind of snowballed from there. And since then, actually, I haven't done a great deal with it, but it's something I feel very passionate about kind of bringing back, because now, again, I'm talking to more and more people who are, especially in this current economy, really struggling. And so I feel very passionate about sharing the message around what it actually meant, why you're in debt, why you're struggling to pay it off. And it's got nothing to do with your strategy, or very little to do with strategy.
Yeah. So share, what does it have to do with?
It's all to do with shame. Okay. It's because what I discovered was it sounds a bit strange, but you'll understand this. It's like when you're vibrating at a certain frequency, and under the surface, whilst I was kind of thinking I'm high vibe, you know, I'm doing my affirmations, I'm positive, I feel good. Under the surface, I had a resonance of shame because of the debt that was sat there in the background, like in my shadow. So no matter what I did externally, it's like the law of cause and effect. The effects were showing up as debt. That was perpetuating this dark feeling of shame. So the more shame I felt, the more I perpetuated the debt. And then I was stuck in a loop. But as I started to do the deep work, because I tried all the external stuff, and when I hit that rock bottom moment, and I knew I have to go within, nothing external.
When you say external stuff, because that I'm thinking that, how does that resonate for me? And there are elements of that, because I know that when I've had pockets of managing my money, investments, everything, and leaving the corporate world was a big one, because I wanted to make sure I had funding to do that, to pay 6 months of my mortgage. That was really my mind. And I often share about the fact that when I was in corporate, I got to a position where money came in and went out. I didn't think about paying the bills, because I got myself to that point. And granted, sometimes I think I never had time to spend the money because I was always working. That was the irony. But the idea of stability was a huge fear to me. I always say to people, if you're leaving and going to do your own business, you've got to tap into, like you say, sometimes, this is why I'm trying to unpick the external, because it was internally, I was petrified of the stability of money every month, and where is it coming from, and what does that look like? Because let's be honest, half of us know, when you run your own business, you don't know where the next money's coming from the same. That's working for a corporate or working for somebody where you're employed and you get paid the same amount every single month. It's not the same. So I was very aware of that security. But what I knew was, internally I had to have a mindset shift of the fears and look at that.
Yes.
And I also know that I had to adapt my lifestyle. And that's what I'm saying. For me, I wouldn't have said that was an external thing. That was an internal thing that I had to, again, work on a mindset of, you can't just go and do this. You can't just have a gym membership for £175 at David Lloyd. You've got to change things up. So now I just go to Pure Gym. It's £22 a month. But actually, I like that because in my lifestyle, I don't know, I want to be more in my business. And when I was at Sainsbury's, I literally just did Sainsbury's corporate and the gym. That was kind of my life at point.
Yes. Yeah.
But now I'm like, I want to be in my business more than the time I gave fitness then. So that means that I just want to get in and out. So £175, I don't need the spa and all of that. I just don't need that right now. What I need is in and out, real intention, wake up every morning, 6 to 8 a.m. is my gym, then I'm into work. So for me, it was a whole lifestyle piece as well, a mindset to look at, again, the relationship I have with money as well. And we'll come back to your point here around what you saw as external, but I think the externals for me was very much about, I had to know where my money was, and I had to, face into, and I think that's the hardest thing of anything, the awareness of, this is where my money is, this is what I've got, this is what I've invested in, this is if I have got debt, where it is, or what that looks like. Now, I don't see, for me, investments, I don't see debt when I can pay it, when I'm paying it off. So I see that as an investment. Whereas,
Yes.
and that's always, I always look at Martin Lewis, I love him for money stuff. But when you think of like me, my definition of debt would be like, you can't afford to pay it off, and it's not, you just building on it as such.
Yes.
So that's probably more an external way. What would be your kind of interpretation, definition of the internal versus external around this?
Sure. Yeah. So I loved what you said about needing that security.
Yeah.
And so it's often it's the meaning we give money, isn't it, that becomes the thing for us. So for you saying, you needed security, money represented that security for you.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is you kind of created both an external structure and you did your mindset work to create a sense of internal security. Because if you are then feeling inherently secure, then your worldview, your external reality will reflect that secure worldview, that sense of security, or that inner set point, let's call it. So when I was looking at, okay, so I tried all these budgeting apps, these methods, these strategies to clear debt, and I would get so far. So it's like I'd be doing well, I'd be clearing it, I'd be enjoying the whole budgeting thing. I'd have my spreadsheets that were all fresh and new and exciting, and I had that initial burst of enthusiasm. But then within, say, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I would start to fall off the wagon, and I'd feel like it's no fault of my own. I can't help it. I'd start to self-sabotage. And it was that ego part of me that was saying, oh, you deserve a break, or, oh, why don't you just, take your foot off the pedal of the business for a little bit, especially after I'd been charging forward, making money, clients were coming in, everything was going well. Then somehow I would slam the brakes on. So it wasn't a conscious decision. It was my internal compass being so familiarized with shame, being so comfortable with that, because that was my inherent state of being. So of course, whatever I did, I would stay in that. I would expand beyond it, but then I would breach my upper limit, if you like. We call it different things, like my set point, my upper limit. So I would then self-sabotage. I would put the brakes on my business. I would start procrastinating, getting distracted. And then before I knew it, I needed to start using my credit cards to live on. So I was kind of yo-yoing in that feast and famine. And I felt helpless. Like, you can't control, this was my set belief at the time. You cannot control when or how clients come in. It's impossible. I'm at the mercy of when somebody decides to get in touch. So I felt that inherently, and that was my belief system. And therefore, that was what my subconscious mind was ensuring that became my reality. Yeah. So as you were saying, you did your inner mindset work. And it was exactly the same. And they say, don't they, 95% of success in life is the inner game, mastering your mindset.
Yeah. And has that been the key for you in terms of internally? Was there any external work that you had to do in terms of how you looked at the support around debt, even just maybe externally telling somebody?
Yeah, so the kind of the external things I did. So when I started the process, like at day one, and bearing in mind I'd been in debt for 23 years, I tried everything as far as I was concerned. I tried everything. So I had no clue how I was going to do it, but I was determined and I'd made that decision. It was like non-negotiable decision. So my starting point was, okay, I don't know how to do this. I don't know the how. Never written a book before. I don't even know what that looks like. Never been out of debt. Don't know what that looks like. But what do I know? So simply I started with, well, I know that in order to manifest money, gratitude journaling, I knew that. I knew gratitude journaling. So I'd started doing that. It was almost like starting with what you do know. I knew how to make money in my business because I'd been in business at that point for 3 years. So I thought, right, I know how to make money. So that's the next thing. I'm going to focus on going out there making money. I'm going to focus on journaling gratitude. But the one thing that I suppose was the first game changer was, instead of being busy going out there making money, going out there doing my affirmations, doing all this stuff to create the change, I actually allowed myself to feel what I was feeling around debt. And this was the other thing that I think, again, with anything that is a challenge in our lives, we get busy to avoid feeling it.
I absolutely love what you share there, and it completely resonates. And when I was like, yeah, when you just said about made the non-negotiables as like the decisions, like that's so true. Like I would say, like make success non-negotiable. Yeah. And I've noticed, I think I did a podcast on it a couple of months ago. I think it was with Charlotte Wibley actually, who's in my mastermind a minute, and we're talking about you got to get bored in your business. We want the fun stuff. And actually, ironically, I'm going out to a networking event today, but I'm incredibly intentional about where I spend my time. Yes. And who I connect with and the purpose. So everything I do, apart from personal life, I make sure that in business, I'm very intentional with everything. Every single thing I do has an intention and purpose, whether people think that's right or wrong. Outside of my life and work, I'm like, I don't want to be like that. So I can have that a little bit, because otherwise people are like, well, that's really hard to live by, but it works for me. Yeah. The being busy stuff there is, I recognized it about 6 weeks ago. I was like, it's tough. I feel it's tough right now. And why do I feel like you say, like you've got to lean into those challenges, the struggles, the fear, the insecurities that you've got internally, and ask yourself those questions. Like you said, what do I know? What am I great at? But what's the reason I'm feeling this? And I was like, it's because I'm bored. Like I'm bored doing the same thing day in, day out. I go to the gym, I come home, I jump on my laptop, I'm getting into conversations with people, I'm getting leads, I'm getting into sales conversations booked, and then I'm getting then I'm doing my podcast once a week, then I'm doing a pod talk on a Friday, then I'm doing this. And I was like, yeah, that's what I wanted. That was the objective for this 90-day block I'm in, is to get bored. Yeah. And now I'm there, I'm like, So I'm like, so it's a win that I'm there. So I'm like, the awareness of brilliant, I'm there. But it is the fact that it was just shutting off the being busy. And I wasn't intentionally being busy to look busy. It was because busy feels good. It feels like we're productive and we're getting things done. But ultimately in your business, like you said, you can't keep creating a change and going for things. You've got to be the change and do the part. This is where the doing comes in, and the being. And also all of this goes back to, like we said, almost the mindset part, and knowing you're asking yourself those tough questions. So I absolutely love the way you shared that as well, and so simply, because this is where, again, we say success leaves clues. And I think people overcomplicate so much of business. Yeah. People talking that are in it, that are understanding it, that can piece the puzzle pieces together to you and say, stop just being busy. It's not just getting out there and doing every networking event you can. It's not just being on socials all the time. Like, you've got to do the foundational work, and you've got to ask yourself, like, what do I know and stuff that I need to do that's going to actually change the trajectory in my business and in my life.
But it's also, I think, I mean, what you said there about the busyness and the productivity, I think we've all bought a lie that and we associate our value with how productive we're being.
100%.
There's an amazing book. I feel like the author's something, it might be Devlin Price, Dr. Devlin Price, and she wrote a book called Laziness Does Not Exist. And I read that not so long ago, and I was blown away because, I was totally equating my value to how productive I was being.
Yeah.
I always felt like I'm not doing enough. There's more to do. There's more to do. And I wasn't listening to my body. We're not robots. We're not machines. We fatigue, especially in this type of work where our brains are switched on to this like creative, high intense level. And so we somehow bought the lie that I can be as productive at 9 a.m. as I am at 7 p.m. and no breaks in between. And it's craziness. And so part of my process was actually, like you say, stepping back, taking time out, doing more fun stuff, relaxing, sleeping more, and on all the stuff that in the past might have felt like laziness.
Yeah. And
that I judged myself for. I'm not doing enough.
Yeah, that resonates. I remember when I left the corporate world, the part I had to go on again, mindset work, and I have a mindset coach who's phenomenal. And I had a conversation. I was actually having therapy about 2 years ago around some of this as well, when I left corporate, because it was a really hard transition for me with what I was going through, because I went for a role and I didn't get signed off by directors, and that time for me was my rock bottom. I wasn't the severity of needing antidepressants, but I was drinking a lot as a way to manage my emotions and to manage the state. And the therapy helped massively, really helped through that period. And I spoke to her, I remember one session all around this idea of, I don't like being bored, that's lazy. And she was like, we need to get into that, like what that means. And then I've unpacked that as well in business and continue, because it's not, we can't just naturally instantly overcome it either. It's the awareness part. And I've identified that, but just because I've identified it in therapy doesn't mean I'm suddenly over it. I've still had to work on that. I don't quite have the answers to that yet as well. And what I've also learned within having a mindset coach in the business side is that when I look back on my corporate years, and I was there for one company for 19 years, so at 36 to say that is kind of the niche thing nowadays. And I recognize that like you said, with value, that working hard for me got you results, got you the next thing. And it did for me. My success was at points very linear because I just did well at it and I fitted so well. I valued hard work, and you've got to work hard for things. And we talk about, like you said, around with money and our story with money, etc. My money story was very much an amazing childhood with parents and everything, but it was work hard, get good results, work hard, you get this. And because that was their story as well with money. And then money comes, etc., and things like that. And money doesn't grow on trees. You've got to work for it. So I always value that hard work is that, and you've got to work the hours and stuff. And I'm seeing more and more in your own business that's not true. It doesn't have to be.
That's not true.
It's very hard to change a mindset, a way of being that's been almost like easy.
Well, it's your paradigm, isn't it? It's your
so
paradigm. And we tend to repeat. We have a vow of loyalty to the upbringing that we were raised in, this paradigm. We will copy our parents inadvertently most of the time. So we have this money paradigm, and that's their paradigm. They had their money stories, their money struggles, their money challenges, and we were downloading all of that in childhood right into our subconscious. We downloaded the paradigm, the program, and then it's played out in our lives. But the problem with the notion that you have to work hard in order to be super successful, you've got to work hard to make more money, is that there is a upper limit. And so with that story, we will sabotage our ability to make more and more and more and grow into the next level, because then comes in the subconscious, also the other side of us protecting ourselves from burnout. And then we'll have this belief, I can't work any harder, so how am I going to hit the next level in my business? How am I going to get to the multiple 5-figure months, the 6-figure year, when I'm working so hard to get to where I am here? And so that's when we create feast or famine in our businesses. And so it is a lie, because actually, and I teach a lot of all my clients, I teach them the notion that when I relax, when I have fun, that's when I earn more money. And it's that having that balance that you're open to receiving and a limitless abundance. And it's not proportionate to how much work you're doing. Otherwise, like I said, that feast and famine will come in, because the fear of burnout will limit you. So and I think it's knowing, like you say, having that self-awareness is the first step. But then, I mean, I use energy techniques, clearing through EFT, Psych K, all these sort of energy processes that rapidly shift that belief, so then you can install a new belief.
What do you think as a reflection, one of the most profound things you've done, which really moved the needle in changing and moving you from being in debt to 6 months where you weren't?
The most profound thing was feeling what is. I called it acknowledging what is in the book. So acknowledging what is was about, so, you know, to give you the in context example, when I first decided, I had to pull out all my bank statements. I had to look at all my credit card statements. And in the past, because I didn't know how much debt I was in, it was because I didn't want to look at it. So when I looked at it, my whole body I got flooded with a negative emotion. Shame. It was shame. So my chest was pounding. I felt the blood drain out of my face. I was having a very physical, visceral, uncomfortable response. And so instead of my usual thing, which was, right, get busy, what can I do something to make this feeling go away, to distract myself from having to feel this feeling, I actually sat and allowed myself to just go inwards and feel it, not actually not feeling the pain of it so much, but actually observing the feeling in my body. So it's called process coaching, where you just observe, and so what I was able to do was say, this feeling in my chest feels like shame. It's black, it's heavy, it's pulsing, it's painful, it feels light. And so I would give it an analogy, I'd give it a color, a shape, I would describe it as though it's separate from me. And when you can actually observe it and be very present to the sensation, it dissipates. And that's the amazing thing. So as I was able to sit in the shame, literally sit in the agony of it, I started to notice it dissipate. And what comes up underneath the charge, that heavy emotion, once it starts to dissipate, you then start to receive all the limiting beliefs that is keeping that emotion in place. So I started to realize, oh my God, I've got these subconscious beliefs that are, I'm undisciplined, I'm out of control, I'm powerless. So as they came up, I was able to write them all out, look at them and go, wow, I let go of all of that. That's not who I am. I'm not undisciplined. I've done a lot of things in my life that prove that. So once you clear the negative emotion, you then have access to the limiting beliefs that are so deeply buried, you don't have access to them. They come to the surface, and then you know what you're dealing with. Then you can start moving through it. So, and even now, like I said, I no longer feel overwhelmed, because overwhelm was another one of my favorite go-to chemical cocktails that I would lap up every day in my business. Oh, I love a bit of overwhelm. And it was blocking me. So I actually sat in my overwhelm and I allowed it to be there. And over time, it just started to break up and dissipate, and I disassociated from it. And now I don't feel overwhelmed.
I went on a little bit of a rant a while ago about overwhelm, because it's the go-to thing that lots of people are saying right now. And I was like, right, let's break it down. Would you rather feel underwhelmed? What is overwhelm? Where is that happening? What is creating it? And that was a whole other podcast, but it's such a topical thing. And again, I wouldn't say it's as direct as we blame or we just pushing out those those fears and everything, but there comes a point when you have to be honest with yourself and face, like I said, lean into those and understand where they're coming from,
Yeah.
and ultimately what's going to bring the change, because otherwise you stay in chaos.
Yeah, they're learned behaviors. It's a learned response. You know, at some point, being overwhelmed when we were small, that sensation we feel, or we feel and felt when we were small, it was a childhood survival response.
Yeah.
And as we grew up, we attached other things to it, and then we labeled it. And in this instance, we labeled it overwhelm. And so, if you can clear the original cause, which is when you go into it, that's what you have access to, and clear the subconscious root of the overwhelm, because your subconscious just thinks it's protecting you. That is it. Its whole nature is to protect you. So it will get you into overwhelm, so you don't move forward, or you don't do the things that you know will grow you or push you beyond your present paradigm.
Yeah.
It's a phenomenal thing, really, when you think it's a gift, because
Yeah.
it's showing you what needs to heal.
Yeah, 100%. I love everything you share about that. And it resonates with the work I do on myself and my business. Who's been a real key inspiration for you in life or business?
Well, in life, I would say my mum. My mum is an incredible, inspirational woman. She's small, pint size. She's Japanese, but she is a mighty force of nature. So she's always my inspiration. But I think at every step of the way, I've got a coach who is Nico, who is my personal business. Well, she's a mindset coach, EFT practitioner, but she's been instrumental in so many of the shifts I've had. And people like Dr. Joe Dispenza, reading his book, Breaking the Habit. I mean, that was part of my debt journey. I was reading that book, I was doing his meditations. So that also supported the process. So I love his work. But my biggest inspiration, I would say the biggest influence, is Eckhart Tolle. So I'm very spiritual, and so he's my go-to.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'd love to go and see Joe Dispenza. I worked with a coach a couple of years ago, and he went and did his I think it was a week event in London.
He's advanced.
Yeah,
amazing.
So his work is, if you're not aware of Joe Dispenza, go and check his work out, because it is phenomenal on that part.
Life-changing.
Yeah, it really is. And look, the spiritual side for people, you'll have different ways you want to embrace that and know what it means to you, but it is for everybody in some capacity. You've just got to find out your way with it.
Activating your own power. That's really what it's about, like clearing all this. And I mean, Natalie, coaching is unlearning, isn't it? Unlearning, like that growth journey is unlearning all the stuff that we've like gathered over the years that don't serve us. And so I think spiritual or otherwise, it is about coming back to your authentic self, like who you really are at your core. When you're operating at that level, life feels effortless. It's really like magical, really a magical place.
I love it's just so great to connect with people and have that conversation like with yourself today, because our backgrounds are, and mine solidly has evolved into strategy more, but it was off of the pure love and passion getting into coaching. And I was absolutely transformed when I started to find out about this coaching thing. Exactly. And the irony was that, retail, I was told, because it just come into the corporate side of the leadership programs we were doing, and it was I was told I wasn't great coaching, so I was like, I'm not having that. So went on their courses they gave me, came back, and I'd see other people coaching, inverted commas, and I'd be like, that's not what I've learned. That's not coaching. They're just telling somebody what to do. So I was like, I can't do everything here. I'm going to go and find my own way with it. So I found the coaching academy, and I was just there 2 days. I was just on another level way of coming out. So enamored by it. I loved it. And like you're on cloud 9. And like anybody that's had that experience of really feeling passionate about pure coaching, and then going and being in that space with people where it's that, and then learning about it, it's transformational stuff. And
it really is.
Coaching, purest form, I've noticed for me, and connecting the dots and kind of finding my own way, is I've then been having people come for mentoring on it, and then it's evolved to actually strategy was what I loved in work. I want to build a business and do business still, so it's strategy, but always with the foundations of coaching. So I will coach in its purest form, but tends to be very one-to-one with clients, whereas group programming is more strategy and mentoring. But what I love and what I want to link it to here is that the coaching part, I guess I get very frustrated. There's lots of people saying exactly that in the world that I coach. It's like, but you don't. When you can have a conversation with someone like yourself, and it is, you can see your skill set, I can see your passion, I can see where you're going on a journey piece. That for me is coaching in its purest form, and it's a beautiful journey if you haven't gone on it. And never lose that essence, even if, and I don't want to. That's why it's great for me to think, blimey, it's nice to have a conversation with someone who's it. And you don't feel a bit woo-woo to them or a bit like, what's she banging on about? Because
no, it's so real.
It is out there, and it does transform people's lives. And I work with a lot of coaches, and I'll say to them, like, stop doing this by the hour stuff when you're building your business. Stop doing this everyone else is doing when you went into a pure passion and a pure love. And you're not just selling a product, right? You are changing somebody's life. Like, it's transformational.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you're just going to earn them and help them get an abundance of money, but it's going to change the way they feel. And I share that in, some people ask me, I do invest substantially with people, the right people, but I know I'm an action taker, and I know I'm consistent on what I have to do. So it's an investment itself. It never doesn't become a debt. And I'm very, very aware of and on the ball with that. But the key part is that it's just, I was going back to, I lost my train of thought, but people have got to find out what they love and then really stick with that and keep going, and don't worry about what everyone else is doing. I've completely lost my train of thought with that, which I'll be honest on, but it is absolutely to find people are out there, but that's it, remember you change their lives, and that's the biggest thing. And it doesn't have to be some of the masterminds I'm in, it's not always about the money. And because people are like, well, how much money are you making now? It's like, do you know, it's actually the biggest takeaway is that I'm with people who get it. Because people around me don't, and I can't just disconnect from everybody in my personal life. It doesn't work like that. I don't want them to naturally get it. I don't want to talk work with them. But it also just, it makes me feel good. Like, I love what I do. I don't wake up every morning hating going to work, and I don't hate who's around me because they're negative people that tell me I'm talking rubbish or that's all woo-woo and stuff. Like, I don't have any of that. Like, I have people around me that believe in me, that I build relationships really quickly with, and they're genuine relationships that we're all invested in the same things, because you know, we love what we do, and we're that way inclined in how we see the world. So that's it's lovely, and that's why I love the podcast, is to just find this space and talk with people.
And I think the important thing to add as well, and you're absolutely spot on. It's, you know, I love Tony Robbins' quote, passion is the genesis to genius, and I quote that all the time, because when you take this path, this coaching business journey, the first thing, I think it's quite easy to make that decision to become, this is what I want to do. It's often preceded by a period of struggle, you know, and then you suddenly realize you found another way, and you want to share that other way, and I want to help people. And that's often kind of the premise that leads up to somebody having that catalytic moment where they decide, I'm going to turn this passion into a business, and I really want to help people. But it's not an easy journey. Right. So what I see time and time again as being the biggest struggle for many coaches who are going out there is that they haven't quite got that clarity on what it is they're here to do, the niche, the ideal client, what their message is. Those three things are the three biggest challenges I see time and time again for these passionate coaches who really want to help people, but they just aren't feeling amazing about what it is they're going out there and offering. And that's when everything feels difficult. That's when it feels like a relentless slog, because they're not in that alignment with their unique message or their gift, their authentic voice. And so that's, I think, when it feels really, really difficult. And the telling is that people will throw the towel in because they think, this isn't for me, it's not working. And it is for them. But they just have to kind of not listen to what everyone else is telling them they should do or what they think they should be good at, a lot of people choose a profitable niche in inverted commas, thinking I need to be in that niche, that's where the money is. It's absolute rubbish. I always say you are the greatest client getting asset in your business. So when you are aligned with what you love to talk about and teach, then your enthusiasm, it's like mountain moving energy, isn't it? You're unstoppable. Like you said, I wake up every morning and I feel amazing. I love what I do. That's what gets you out of bed in the morning. That's what gets you over the challenges and the tough times. So it's so important that's what I can get on a rant about, because it's so important to be in alignment with your true niche. Everyone has one. Everyone has a unique gift, a unique way that they deliver their message. So when you find that, that's a game changer.
And I think that this is the proof, is that I'm in a conversation with somebody that's come into my world because we've attracted one another in terms of how we link, how we think, how we see the world. And that's created this next step to the next conversation. And you make things happen. But I'm clear on who I'm to. I'm clear about what I do, what I love. And that's when that connection part happens. So again, like lots of people, if you come from a place, and I think we can assume this a lot when you're in a world where you have positive people around you and it's started to click and the pieces are fitting together more. It's like, oh, that's how the world is. And like you said, like, it's tough out there right now in business. It's tough out there for lots of people. And if you can create a space for people, even if you're thinking, I'm on my own, I'm starting out, there is no one I'm connecting with, go and start a community, because that's the key. People need that. When you, as you said, say Tony Robbins, he talks around a lot of uncertainty and what we, like intrinsically what we need as people a lot. And the idea, if you think of Maslow's hierarchy needs, you need to feel a sense of belonging and that security, you said. So go and create that, even if it is just to serve one person at first, then two, then three. We said this word shame. Don't worry about the shame or the pride that comes with, I've got to have people like look like I'm making it and there's loads of people. Invest everything in making a difference and having that ripple effect on one or two people's lives and seeing and generally doing that and seeing how it evolves.
Yeah, it's giving contribution. That's where you're going to grow.
Tony Robbins says, my preaching one is the secret to living is giving. I'm always saying.
Yeah, so absolutely. Yeah. And I remember you reminded me, because when I was at the coaching academy, I was speaking to a fellow coach, and I was saying, I really want to speak at an event. I really just want to get invited to speak at an event. And he said to me, well, create an event then. I was like, you mean I can do that? I can do that. And I did. And I created my own little workshops in my village where I used to live. And they were the confidence and self-esteem workshops, way back. It was 2015. I was doing that. And I was putting leaflets in hairdressers and beauty parlors. And because that was like, I didn't even know about the whole online world at that point. So I created these little workshops. It was just, oh yeah, I can create it. Yes, I was terrified, but I just did it anyway because I had to, because I needed to make money, I needed to grow my business. And it's so powerful when you just, for somebody to almost give you permission to get out your own way. And if you want to do something, go do it, create it. I love that.
I think if you're walking away from anything from today's episode, it's trust yourself and give yourself that permission. You've got to do that. And like you said, sometimes we don't think of these things, but you need somebody, we're saying it, to go and do it, make it happen. How can people connect with you? And of course, you shared a couple of times about your book and buy your book.
Yes. So the book is on Amazon. It's called Paid in Full: Clearing the Burden of Debt to Live Your Best Life Now. And my website is sanaefloyd.com. So and I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn, usual places. So if you could share the handles, then that would be great.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks, Natalie.
If you liked today's talk, go ahead and hit subscribe and make sure you commit to one thing when you walk away. I really think this is a gift we can all give ourselves. And if you'd like help in growing your business, hit the show notes and find the direct link to me on WhatsApp. Send me your question and I'll get straight back to you. Thank you for your time.